if you build a suspension bridge, engineering 101 dictates that you don't design it to just barely hold the cars driving across it.
Right, you build in a massive buffer.
Exactly. You design it to hold like 5 or maybe 10 times that weight. You intentionally build in this massive safety net.
Because the physical world is just incredibly unpredictable. I mean, redundancy is essentially the invisible safety net of modern civilization.
Yeah.
We basically need backup plans for our backup plans.
But if you look at the July 21st, 2026 news brief we're taking a deep dive into today, it really feels like humanity has quietly decided to erase that buffer completely.
We really have.
I mean, from the power grid in the central U.S. to the AI servers running our daily tech, we are driving down the highway at 90 miles an hour, the check engine light is flashing, and we've, already sold the spare tire to save weight.
It's a systemic squeeze.
Yeah.
Across our physical infrastructure, our digital networks, and even our political systems, that safety net is just vanishing.
Yeah.
And the downstream effects are wild.
So let's trace exactly how this is happening, starting with where you can literally feel the heat, which is the physical squeeze on the grid.
Right, the Southwest Power Pool.
Yes, I was looking at that data in this brief, and it is alarming. For context, this is a massive electricity grid that covers 14 states in the central U.S.
It's a huge area.
Massive. And just Monday evening, they had to issue a level 3 energy alert.
Which is really serious.
Yeah, they narrowly avoided rolling blackouts, but to do so, they had to burn through almost all of their operational reserves.
They were running on fumes. I mean, an absolute zero in the reserve tank.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I'm looking at this thinking, okay, it's a hot summer, but is the grid just fundamentally broken? It feels like we're running the global economy like a smartphone on 1% battery with every single app open.
That is a remarkably accurate analogy.
Are data centers and industrial demand really the straw breaking the camel's back here, or is it something else? Because it's not like this is happening on a quiet, sunny afternoon.
No, definitely not.
While the grid is gasping for air, you've got Tropical Storm Bertha spinning in the Gulf of Mexico with 60-mile-per-hour winds, pushing a storm surge toward the Gulf Coast.
Right.
And you've got Hurricane Fausto churning out in the Pacific. Not to mention the entire Midwest is being choked by a massive blanket of Canadian wildfire smoke.
Which brings us to the core mechanism here. It is rarely just one single event that breaks a complex system. Engineers look at something called layered exposure.
Layered exposure, what does that look like in practice?
Well, it's the compounding effect of simultaneous crises. You have extreme heat pushing air conditioning demand to the absolute maximum.
Right.
Then you inevitably have unexpected localized power plant outages because, the equipment is running too hot for too long.
It overheats.
Exactly. And now you add the constant massive energy draw of new industrial data centers. They all just stack on top of each other.
But, I always assumed the solution was just to build more power plants. If we need more juice, just build more generation, right?
It seems logical, yeah. But adding what we call nameplate generation, which is really just the theoretical maximum power a plant can produce on its best day, that doesn't solve a localized crisis.
Oh, I see.
The events of this week show that raw power generation is useless without heavily reinforced, dependable transmission lines and massive battery storage.
Because you have to actually get the power to where it's needed during an emergency.
Exactly. Think about the clean air shelters operating in the Midwest right now. They are entirely reliant on heavy-duty, portable HEPA filtration systems to scrub the fine particulate matter from the wildfire smoke.
And outside those shelters, the brief mentions people are having to wear N95s and P100 respirators just to walk to their cars.
Yes. And those HEPA filters inside, along with refrigerated insulin, home oxygen concentrators, powered mobility devices, they don't just need power eventually. They require uninterrupted, continuous electricity. You can't have a rolling blackout when someone's medical equipment is plugged into the wall.
That paints a really vivid picture. And, if you're listening to this, it's really worth asking yourself, how long could your own home or your office actually function if that energy buffer hit zero?
It's a scary thought.
It is. If the power flickered off during a severe heat wave while the air outside was literally toxic to breathe, the margins are just razor thin.
And that strain on the grid doesn't happen by accident.
Which perfectly transitions into the next major piece of this brief. Because if the grid is maxed out, what is suddenly pulling all this juice? I actually tried to load up Moonshot's new Kimi K3 AI model this morning, and I couldn't.
Yeah, they hit a wall.
The brief notes that they actually had to pause new subscriptions because they exhausted their inference capacity. But that doesn't make sense to me intuitively. Why would a software company run out of software?
Because software isn't magic. It lives on very real, very power-hungry physical servers. And this really highlights a massive shift.
A shift from the cloud to the physical?
Yes. For years, we thought of the cloud as this weightless, infinite resource. But what we are witnessing right now is the intense industrialization of AI. It's hitting hard physical limits.
Let's break down that term, inference capacity, because I think a lot of people, myself included, assume AI just uses power when it's being trained on billions of documents.
Right, training takes a massive amount of power up front, absolutely. But inference is what happens every single time you ask the AI a question.
Oh, so it's the day-to-day usage.
Exactly. It's the computing power required to actually think and generate your specific answer in real time. And the Kimi K3 model is an agentic AI.
Meaning what, exactly?
It doesn't just predict the next word in a sentence like older models. It takes your prompt, makes a multi-step plan, writes code, tests that code, realizes it made a mistake, corrects itself, and then reports back to you.
Wow, so it's essentially running an internal loop over and over, burning electricity with every single thought.
Precisely. And millions of users asking it to perform complex tasks simultaneously, well, that requires a staggering amount of physical server space and electricity.
Which explains the big corporate moves happening right now.
Exactly. That is why Microsoft just signed a multi-billion-dollar deal to finance computing capacity for Mistral to support their European expansion. An independent AI developer simply cannot grow anymore without a hyperscaler backing them up.
A massive company like Microsoft or Amazon that owns the actual physical data centers.
You got it.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. We used to think of AI and software as this invisible magic, but these sources are all about physical limits. The brief mentions Tesla is expanding its camera-only robotaxi service to Orlando and Tampa.
Right.
That's not just an over-the-air software update. You're talking about deploying a physical fleet of cars into Florida traffic. Is the AI boom hitting a concrete wall here?
It is, because it requires heavy operational reality. You need physical depots for fleet maintenance. You need dedicated high-voltage charging stations.
Yeah, tires need changing, sensors need cleaning.
Exactly. You need human mechanics and remote operators to intervene when the car gets confused by a weird construction zone. The technology is moving out of the purely digital realm and into the messy physical world.
We see that with Electra, too. They are dropping $850 million on an Ohio factory to build hybrid electric short-runway aircraft.
Yeah, massive physical infrastructure.
Actual concrete factories being built in the Midwest to support new tech. It completely changes the geopolitical landscape, doesn't it? Because suddenly AI isn't just an abstract intellectual property issue. It's about physical resources. Is that why the U.S. and China are formally setting up AI talks for September?
That is exactly why. When U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent leads that delegation in September, they aren't going to sit around debating the philosophical ethics of superintelligence.
Right, they're talking hardware.
They are negotiating the physical reality of the industry. Beijing wants absolute clarity on future American export controls regarding physical semiconductor chips.
And what does the U.S. want?
Washington wants strict, predictable rules about how frontier systems are governed, especially regarding military applications and cyber risks. Both sides recognize that this technology is now deeply intertwined with industrial capacity and national security.
But here is where the dominoes really start to fall. If the AI boom and the tech sector are completely dependent on physical infrastructure like factories, chips, servers, and power grids, then they are entirely at the mercy of global supply chains.
They are completely exposed.
And the geopolitics section of this news brief is incredibly grim on that front.
The physical choke points of the global economy are under severe simultaneous pressure right now.
Yeah, the brief lays out the facts pretty starkly. A proposed 10-day ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran just failed.
Right.
We're seeing ongoing attacks that have tragically resulted in 50 civilian deaths and around 500 injuries. And the ripple effects on shipping are immediate. In the Strait of Hormuz, a tanker crew actually had to abandon their ship after a projectile strike.
It's a massive disruption.
And over in the Red Sea, 2 Saudi tankers reversed course entirely due to Houthi threats.
The Strait of Hormuz and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait in the Red Sea are arguably the 2 most critical arteries for global energy transit. Having both disrupted at the same time removes any remaining buffer in the global energy market.
And you can see that reflected on the street immediately. I mean, Brent crude oil is up to $91.01 a barrel. U.S. gas is over $4 a gallon.
It hits everything.
It does. It bleeds into freight rates, grocery delivery, the cost of an airline ticket, everything. But so what does this all mean? If the world's two biggest energy choke points are actively under fire and gas is squeezing household budgets, why is the stock market celebrating?
It's a great question.
The brief shows semiconductor stocks just rallied 5.5%, and S&P 500 semi-companies expect 133% earnings growth. How do those two realities exist at the same time? This seems like a massive contradiction.
It seems like it, yes, but it perfectly illustrates a microtrend we can call divided conviction. Investors are essentially pricing in two completely different futures right now.
Break that down for me. Who is betting on what?
Well, stock investors, the ones driving up the semiconductor index, are looking at that 133% earnings growth and the massive physical industrialization of AI we just talked about.
So they're ignoring the supply chain stuff.
Mostly, yes.
Yeah.
They are betting that the technological revolution will outpace any short-term supply chain hiccups. They are fully buying the growth narrative.
Okay, so what are the bond and commodity markets doing then?
They are sounding the alarm. If you look at the brief, the 10-year Treasury yield just hit 4.64%.
Wow.
Yeah, and gold just passed $4,000 an ounce. Historically, bonds and gold are where the quote-unquote smart money hides when they are terrified of long-term entrenched inflation.
Because if those tankers keep turning around in the Red Sea, energy costs go up permanently, not just for a week. Which means the Federal Reserve has to keep interest rates high to fight that inflation, making borrowing incredibly expensive for everyone.
Exactly. And the lack of redundancy comes back to haunt us here, too. Emergency oil stocks globally are tight, but more importantly, refining capacity is stretched to the limit.
Because crude oil doesn't just go straight into a car.
Right. You can't just dump raw crude into a delivery truck. It has to be refined into diesel or gasoline. If a localized supply shock hits and we don't have a buffer of refined fuel sitting in storage tanks, a 2-week shipping delay turns into a deeply painful long-term economic headache.
The margin for error is just completely gone.
Exactly.
It feels like this lack of a safety net is entirely contagious. We are seeing these incredibly narrow margins everywhere, not just in our power grids and our shipping lanes. This pressure is bleeding into the fundamental systems of our society.
It's systemic.
We are engineering scale to the absolute maximum limit across our politics, our medicine, and even our entertainment.
We are relentlessly optimizing for maximum output, completely ignoring whether that output is actually sustainable.
Look at the political landscape outlined in the brief. Just stating the facts here. Congress is facing intense, growing questions over the authority and the massive costs of these ongoing military operations.
Right.
But meanwhile, House Republicans are rushing to force through major parts of President Trump's legislative agenda before their August recess, despite operating with incredibly narrow congressional margins.
There is zero political capital to spare.
None at all. And at the same time, President Trump just announced a 50% tariff on Canadian imports, adding massive economic friction right on our border. Plus, a Trump-aligned super PAC boasts over $400 million for the midterms.
The machinery of government is being pushed to operate at redline, forcing massive agendas through tiny, closing windows of opportunity. And it is not just an American issue.
Definitely not. The brief highlights that over in the UK, Prime Minister Andy Burnham is facing a nearly identical squeeze.
Yeah, he's under immense pressure.
He is desperately trying to ease household costs to keep his government stabilized. The political buffer globally is just razor thin. But what really surprised me was seeing this exact same hyper-optimization in medicine.
Ah, the Novo Nordisk case.
Yes. Novo Nordisk is aggressively suing Eli Lilly over advertising claims in the GLP-1 weight loss drug market. Is this just a standard corporate lawsuit, or is something deeper happening here?
It is a clear symptom of engineered scale. The market for these GLP-1 drugs is so historically massive, and the competition is so fierce, that the companies are optimizing for market dominance over fundamental stability.
So they're just fighting over every inch of territory.
Exactly. The battleground has shifted from merely ensuring clinical supply and patient health to aggressive legal strategy and advertising warfare. They are squeezing every conceivable competitive advantage out of the legal system because the financial stakes are too high to leave any buffer.
Wow. It's like the moment a market gets that large, it stops being about the product and starts being about crushing the margin of the competitor.
Right.
And we are seeing that same tension between massive scale and fundamental quality in culture and entertainment.
The sports world is a perfect example of this right now.
It really is. I mean, Spain just won the World Cup over Argentina 1-0, but the tournament itself FIFA bloated it to 48 teams.
That's a massive experiment.
Huge. They crammed 104 matches into just 39 days. Players are physically exhausted. And over in cricket, the 100 tournament is literally restructuring the rules of a traditional sport just to fit it into shorter TV broadcast windows.
It's all about the broadcast.
Yeah. And in theaters, Christopher Nolan's new epic, The Odyssey, just pulled in $264 million globally. Whether it's a 48-team World Cup, massive blockbuster films, or pharma companies battling over ads, it feels like we're engineering scale at the direct cost of sustainability. Are we optimizing everything to the point where it breaks?
I think we are, because the human body, just like a power grid, requires a buffer. Let's look at the World Cup expansion. From a purely financial perspective, FIFA looks at a 48-team tournament and sees brilliant optimization.
They see more tickets, more ads.
Exactly. They see more global audience growth, expanded sponsorship revenue, and massively increased commercial broadcast inventory.
They just see scale. More games equals more money.
Right. But the players, the actual physical assets generating that revenue, they have hard biological limits.
Yeah, you can't just push past lactic acid.
Exactly.
Yep.
Lactic acid buildup, muscle fatigue, joint strain, the toll of international travel. When you compress 104 high-stakes matches into 39 days, you completely erase the physical recovery buffer.
It's wild.
You are maximizing short-term broadcast revenue at the severe expense of long-term match quality and player health.
It's the human equivalent of running the Southwest Power Pool at 99% capacity during a heat wave.
It is the exact same mechanism. We're demanding absolute maximum output from our athletes, our politicians, our electrical infrastructure, and our supply chains, without providing the operational reserves necessary to sustain that output when something inevitably goes wrong.
Okay, let's pull all these threads together. We've traced this phenomenon all the way from a 14-state power grid emergency to the realization that advanced AI actually requires massive concrete factories and strained power plants.
It's all connected.
It really is. We've navigated geopolitical choke points, observing how the stock market is somehow cheering while oil tankers are literally turning around and bond yields are flashing warning signs. And we've seen how engineered scale is physically exhausting our political systems, our medical markets, and even our elite athletes.
It paints a comprehensive, slightly daunting picture of a world that has decided to operate entirely without a safety net.
But I want to leave you, the listener, with something deeply practical today. In reviewing all these sources and connecting these dots, you synthesized a concept that I think changes how we should view our own careers in this landscape.
Yeah, it's something I've been thinking about a lot.
It wasn't explicitly named in the headlines, but it is the current running underneath every single one of them.
Yes. When you look at the totality of this disappearing redundancy, you arrive at what I am calling the return of operations.
The return of operations. Explain what that means in practice.
Well, think about the cultural narrative of the last decade or so. We have absolutely glorified the disruptors. We worship the software engineers who moved fast and broke things.
Right. The Silicon Valley mindset.
Exactly. We celebrated the visionary founders who promised us infinite weightless scale in the cloud. The highest status in society belonged to the people who built the shiny, frictionless front-end applications.
The people who created the magic.
The magic, exactly. But look at the landscape we just walked through today. What is actually determining success, survival, or failure right now? It is not the shiny front-end app.
Yeah.
Success right now is determined by fixing broken launch pads, which requires highly specialized physical infrastructure repair. It is managing maxed-out data centers that need complex thermal cooling. It is securing vulnerable shipping routes and manually patching strained electrical transmission lines in the Midwest.
And even with AI, it's not just writing the code, it's maintaining the physical fleet of robotaxis in Florida.
Yes, and maintaining the deterministic logs on these wild agentic AI models.
Wait, hold on. What is a deterministic log?
So when an autonomous agentic AI makes a mistake in the physical world, say it writes bad code that miscorrects a fleet vehicle, a deterministic log is the exact, unalterable, step-by-step record of why it made that choice.
Oh, interesting.
You need highly skilled human engineers to painstakingly comb through that log, find the logical error, and fix the physical machine. It's gritty operational maintenance.
It's the people doing the heavy lifting to keep the system from collapsing.
The real power in the global economy is shifting. The future no longer belongs exclusively to the software disruptors. It belongs to the maintainers.
The
The
maintainer.
professionals who manage the logistics, who fix the physical servers, who patch the power grid, and who ensure that the physical systems of our world don't snap under the pressure. In a world with zero buffer, the maintainers will be the most valuable, highly compensated assets of the next decade.
That is such a powerful shift in perspective. If the entire global system has absolutely no buffer left, the person who knows how to keep that system from breaking becomes the most important person in the room.
Without a doubt, the premium on operational competence has never been higher.
So as you go about the rest of your week, we want to leave you with a challenge. Look around at your own industry, your own team, or your own career path and ask yourself this. Are you just building the disruption, or are you becoming the indispensable person who makes sure the lights actually stay on? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will see you next time.